Hello, hello. So today's guest is Jon Woodward. Over 25 years experience of coaching, coach development, coach education. Really passionate about helping coaches achieve their potential. And one thing I love is that Jon's been doing a lot of work in developing creativity and innovative thinking in coaching, which is something that I get really excited about too. Jon's worked for clubs, governing bodies, including like UK Coaching, the FA, the LTA, Derby County, and now is a lecturer in sport coaching at the University of Derby. So today, for one day only, my tennis journey becomes my coaching journey. So welcome to the show, Jon Woodward. How are you doing?
Excellent. Thank you, Rob, for having me. Really good. Happy New Year to you.
Thank you, and to you, my friend, and to you. So, where do we start? How did you get into coaching originally?
I mean, it's an interesting one since we've kind of started to talk about this. I mean, I think I'm actually near 30 years of kind of coaching experience now, which dates me somewhat, I think, possibly, or makes me feel very old.
You do not look that old. That's impossible. For those who are listening on the podcast,
it's fine.
The vodcast, Mr. Wood was looking good.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, I kind of probably fell into it in kind of school, college time. The kind of coaching opportunities came about. So I kind of started doing it. I was already kind of sport focused. I think the intention was always to go to university to do some kind of sport-based kind of program or degree. So I kind of fell into it, and I fell into kind of coaching a girls' football team many moons ago. That then developed into supporting my own team, coaching kind of thing.
You can't leave that one. So hang on a minute. I mean, firstly, a girls' football, girls' football, so important. And, I look at our daughter, Phoebe, and she's a good little footballer. Mm. But when she's only 13 now, but when she was starting out, 6, 7, so this is only 6 or 7 years ago, there weren't really girls' football teams in the same way. She was put in with the boys, and some people flourish in that and some people don't. And so how has this girls' football team come about? When was this?
Oh, well, we are going back, sadly, 30 years kind of thing. So it was back in my kind of school days. I mean, I probably to caveat that, I mean, I went to secondary school in Singapore. So it was a very different environment. And as part of the program there, you were encouraged to do voluntary hours within the local community or whatever, and I had to choose something that would have kind of floated my boat and engaged me, kind of thing. And the notion of a girls' football team with the girls at school of a younger age group kind of came about. I went, well, I'll go and do it. So kind of went in very fresh-faced with no qualifications, no experience of actually coaching, but it got you into the thing of, well, I was expecting the girls to do this, and they weren't capable of doing that kind of thing. So I had to kind of adapt it straight away. So it was a kind of initial kind of get into it, get it sorted kind of thing, but it kind of whetted my appetite greatly to kind of develop. From there, I think it helped that I was doing GCSE sports studies and then A-level PE, which always helped. And it just naturally became what I wanted to do. It may be part down to the fact that maybe I realized I wasn't going to make it as a player myself. So the next best thing, or the thing that I enjoyed the most, was actually developing players, and kind of dropping into it that way.
I think it's really encouraging for any youngsters listening that sport coaching can be a career. I know when I went to my local school, and when we were talking about work experience, and football and tennis were my life, cricket, any sport were my life. It's what I love. And so I went into the school careers office and they said, "Oh, what do you want to be?" I said, "Well, I'd love to work in sport. I'd love to be a coach." And they said, "All right, let's see what we can do work experience wise," because the school sorted it out. So I got it back, and it was right. You can report to your local sports centre. So I was like, "Amazing! This is great. Thank you so much." And so I turned up on the day, and they were like, "Right, you just go down the stairs, and you'll see a door, and it says boiler room." And you knock on that door, and that's where you are. And I was like, "Oh, right." I was like, "Okay." So I went down, and my work experience was looking after the heating in the local leisure centre. And that was as close as I got. And, I didn't go after this where I've ended up, which is sport coaching, because I didn't realise the opportunities that were there. And I think now that's changed. Is that the impression you get?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I think I was kind of fortunate that the intention was always to go to university, but both mum and dad said, go to university, do something that you want to do. You know, I could have gone to do English lit or physics or whatever, and not decrying either of those subjects. It wouldn't have engaged me, kind of thing. And I think when I did my undergraduate degree, it was a sports science degree, you know, and now you look at the kind of programs we offer at the University of Derby and a lot of other universities across the country, every individual module I covered, you can now do a 3-year degree programming. The fact that, so I did 3 modules of sports coaching. You can now do a 3-year degree program in sports coaching, or you can do physiotherapy, or you can do physiology or whatever. So now the opportunity's there. I think the kind of challenge is that coaching has to be recognised as a kind of recognised profession more often. The kind of issue you'll always have is that 95% of coaches in the UK are voluntary.
Yeah.
And it's only a kind of small amount who actually earn a good living from it, kind of thing. However, and kind of alluding to the kind of previous podcast you did with the wonder and legend that is kind of Keith Reynolds, it's not just a career. It actually gives you those life skills and human-based skills that will develop you forever, kind of thing. I mean, I think coaching is parenting, it's being a friend, it's being a mentor, it's being whatever you need to do, kind of thing. So it's those kind of same levels. So the opportunity to do more coaching is now, but I think the way sports science as an industry is kind of developed is kind of huge. And it covers all these different areas.
It's fascinating though, isn't it? Because we're going to get all these graduates coming out with incredible skills, and yet at the moment, the way it is, a large percentage of them are only going to be able to use that in a voluntary capacity. And that's, in my mind, that's wrong. You know, since I've become a full-time tennis coach, I know how hard work it is to coach. You know, I love it, but it's hard work. And you know, for the young people who are coming out with these qualifications and who are upping the level of our sport in coaching across this country, they deserve to be paid for this. They deserve for it to be a career, because sport can change everything for young people.
Absolutely. And I think getting the right person in the right role, much the same as kind of teaching is, you get the right teacher, you remember that kind of teacher forever. We were having a conversation before we did this about coaches that we know, kind of thing. And it is, you remember them 20, 25 years on, and those are the ones that kind of influence you moving forward. And I think it's the kind of phrase I often use is that if you can find a coachable child, then that child will then become an employable adult. On the other side, an uncoachable child has difficulties later in life, you know, and it's finding the right person to give you that kind of start of your journey is absolutely huge, kind of thing. And yeah, we're producing good quality young coaches, but again, sometimes it's almost that kind of, you need the experience, you know, and it's the knowledge versus the experience challenge that you'll always have.
What a wonderful way of putting it. I think you've just sorted the soundbite for this interview that will be using. So you've got to take me past that again. So a coachable child becomes a very employable adult. An uncoachable child may have more issues. Is that how would you just take me through that again? Because I think it's a wonderful way of putting it.
I mean, a coachable child comes to the session and they listen. They want to work hard. They're self-motivated. They're resilient, you know, they want to improve. That's everything you want from any person, you know, all those things that make people better, you know. And it's the fact that the kind of challenges, the successes, the hardships of sport are mirrored later in life. You know, life isn't easy. At some point you might go to a job interview and you might not get the job, or you have to deal with that and move on. That's no difference to losing on a Saturday afternoon in a game of football, or losing a first round tennis match. You have to come back, you know, and all those kind of skills and attributes would do it. I mean, I remember many moons ago, I met with Tony Pickering, who was the original lead of the FA School of Excellence at Lillishall across in Shropshire. And his big phrase for me was about the FA School of Excellence, that you're not just coaching players, you're coaching people, you know, and you're making people better along the way. If you make players out of that, then it's a huge bonus. And I think it's credit to a lot of, I mean, obviously I'm very football centric, and I read a lot about talent development and talent identification, and a lot of the programs are set up that whilst the players may not succeed at the club they're currently at, they may succeed somewhere else. And it's ultimately laying those kind of foundations to where you want to go. yes, there's probably an exception to every rule that some players that may not be overly coachable, but could be a superstar athlete. But ultimately, we're in the business of developing people and developing people. I mean, it's almost making the children of today kind of the players and the adults of tomorrow by giving them good morals, good standards, and good social skills more than anything.
Right, it's fascinating that it's really got me thinking, because if I think back, I'm a full-time tennis coach now, but I worked in the corporate world. I worked with big brands. I worked a lot in football. I remember one job in particular was when I applied to be the Carling Premiership press officer, so to do the sponsorship for Carling, and I was so excited to get an interview, and yet I think about it academically, I wasn't in the top 5-10%, but when it came to that interview, I prepared like I was preparing for my biggest match. I worked hard to find out who was interviewing me, what they might ask me. I was so prepared with ideas, and I turned up and I was so excited, and I delivered on that day and ended up getting that job. And I never thought about it actually, that the tennis side and preparing for a big match, it was similar, and so I think it's a lovely point. I think just a fascinating point, and makes you feel better about coaching. It makes me feel better about coaching.
Absolutely, and that's what it should be. We should feel better about coaching because we are making a difference. I think the challenge you might have sometimes is that the people you're coaching may not know you're making a difference till how many years down the line, but you are setting those kind of foundations in place to do so. And I think my kind of proudest thing sometimes, it's not so much the players who've actually made it as an athlete or as a player, but those who become coaches, and then you almost see some of the kind of behaviors that I instilled on them. They're now developing and probably making a better job of it than I am, but they're a better part of their journey, but earlier than me. As I say, that there was a lad I coached with at Burton, and he's now at the Derby Academy. He's asking the same questions I am now at 46, but he's not even 30. So where's he going to be at 30? And where's he going to be at 40 kind of thing? So it's a great thing to kind of look at. You're actually developing people all along the way.
Just before we leave this little train of thought, because it's a really interesting one, it's just something else that sprung to mind, and this is a coaching special, so we'll leave tennis for a minute. I look at football and I see incredible coaches operating at a grassroots level, doing an incredible job, both on the pitch in terms of their coaching and developing just the people, just like we've talked about, but also doing an awful lot of administration away from the training pitch. And they're doing this on a voluntary basis. Have you come across a movement at all to get, why would a parent be prepared to pay a couple of pounds extra a week, a session, to give that coach the opportunity to be paid for what they're doing? Is this something that you've come across? Is this something that we should be campaigning for?
I think so. I mean, it's a big debate, and we picked this up with our kind of third years at kind of university around the kind of philosophy of coaching, the ideal of coaching, the professionalisation of kind of coaching, and I always go back to the fact that when you used to go to weddings, when we were in kind of wedding season, when our generation were getting wedded, and you used to go around a table of people you don't know, and like, oh, what do you do? I remember I sat somewhere once and somebody said, oh, what do you do? So I'm a coach at Derby. Oh, you're just a coach. And I got quite offended by it. I'm like, well, I'm not just a coach, I was paid for what I do, but I'm not just a coach, and it's this, is it coaching, is it teaching, or whatever kind of thing? Teachers get paid for what they do. They work significantly more hours. Obviously, as you know, I'm married to a teacher, so it's always an interesting kind of debate. But I mean, I think you should be recognised and rewarded for the job you do, and it is a kind of culture shift, a kind of change in mindset that a coach possibly has as big as influence as other people in a child's life or a performer's life than anybody else kind of thing. So I think it is, but it's just recognising actually what they do. I think it might almost be environment specific, and the reason why often parents are sending their children to sport, on the fact that if it's just for them to go to play sport, then why should we pay more? If it's leading somewhere, then it almost becomes, that kind of, is it talent? Is it recreational? But ultimately, the aim of grassroots or recreation, it underpins the whole kind of performance pyramid.
Yeah.
You know,
and that voluntary role is, of course, always going to be there. But when you've got, I see our son's football coach, our youngest, and the difference that coach is making, I'd be very happy to put a few extra quid in than when, somebody who a volunteer can't do quite as much because, so for those that are going over and above, maybe that's the sort of change we need. We will see.
It is that kind of challenge that the biggest workforce in the UK is the voluntary workforce. And it's not just sport. It's the hundreds and thousands of hours that other people do around the kind of scout and guides and all of that. It's all normally voluntary hours to kind of support something. And would actually payment sometimes lessen the motivation of people to do it. We all do it now because we love to do it. I'm in a position that I work in sport and I'm pleased to do that, but I still do a lot of voluntary stuff because I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I think so. It's value, it's perception, it's not just being a coach, it's being a lot more. Do
you know the thing I think, because I coach our Stanley's football team under 11s, and I love it. I absolutely love it, and I do it on a purely a voluntary basis. But I know what I can do. I can motivate the children. I can hopefully, I'll do my best. I can get them to work as a team and have a real team ethos. The interesting thing is, could I be a better coach if it was a role which was paid for? Because we had someone come in and do a session a few weeks ago when we were able to do so. And his technical coaching was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I looked at it and I was like, that's where in football I could improve. If this was my job, I could improve. And as we say, we've got these graduates coming out with these amazing, amazing skills they have, and they deserve to be paid for it, I think. So, maybe in time, man, maybe in time.
I mean, but that's the same with anything. Time underpins everything. And that's always been the kind of challenge of governing body-based qualifications, on the fact that we want you to be qualified in whatever sport you do, but normally we run the programs over a weekend when you should be coaching, or in the evenings when you should be coaching. And it's that interesting dichotomy over back and forth over what comes first. It's better than what it was when I said I've been in the system, kind of nearly 30 years, and it's better, and coaches are getting valued and rewarded more, but it can always get better. Without a shadow of a doubt.
Come on, I'm with you. So in your mind, what do you look? What makes a really good sports coach?
I think ultimately you have to be motivated, and you have to want to get out and kind of do stuff. I think it helps if you can show a huge degree of empathy, if you've been there, done it. And I think the kind of thing we discuss most now, people will often coach in a different way to the way they've been coached. So it's almost making that kind of thing. I think the big thing is to make sure people listen, and you as a coach listen as well. There's nothing worse than a coach keeps doing the kind of same thing over and over again. But you need to listen to what people want and why people are there. I think that is a challenge of any kind of coach. So it's certainly motivation, being very kind of understanding of why people are there. And I think similar to what you'd look for in a player, you have to be willing to learn and kind of develop. And it is through reading, listening, watching, going on kind of programs where I'm just willing to get better and don't keep doing the same things again and again, because at some point something has to change. But I think it's all of those things. I think we described it once as almost a kind of a graphic equalizer on like the old stereos where you'd have to balance things up. Sometimes things have to be of a greater level, of greater importance for certain players than it would for others, or based on the environment. I mean, coaching is very much environment specific. I mean, coaching's coaching. I mean, coaching tennis, coaching football, coaching rugby, the principles are the same. The environment changes, but then the technical output's very different. Yeah. But essentially, it's the same process.
It's what are those students there for is a really fascinating point. If I think about something Andrew Jarrett said in one of our podcasts, be better tomorrow than you are today. And I think that's something that can unify as an objective. It's just that some people are going to be a bit more better than others, because people are there for different reasons. Some are there because, you know, they love sport and they really want to achieve. I think some are there, you know, it's time away from the PlayStation, and the objective for the parent is let them just enjoy this. You know, this is, and of course, enjoyment should be an objective in for every pupil, but for some of them, it's like just get them away from being inside on a PlayStation in a virtual world. Get them back into the fresh air, and I see that, and then maybe that's on the graphic equalizer where you dial up enjoyment. You know, and you're not going to go potentially into the same level of technique because it's about enjoying it.
But in some cases, they might learn technique by just enjoying it and being engaged. I mean, it's the old theory of the 10,000 hours, you know, to become an expert or proficient in something. It can be a loose theory. I say it has to be 10,000 hours of kind of relevant and purposeful practice. If you do 10,000 hours doing it wrong, it's still going to be wrong, kind of thing. But it's how you develop those kind of people. And you're right, a lot of it is just to get them away from the kind of PlayStation. And I think we've already mentioned kind of being creative, but how do you bring that PlayStation, Fortnite, whatever, into the idea of a coaching session? You know, and all of a sudden the kind of two marries together quite nicely to engage people. And that's what it is. It's finding the right engagement tool to make somebody better.
Yeah, come on. Really pleased you brought Matthew Zayed and, you know, Bounce and his 10,000 hours and the purposeful practice into this. I think Matthew Zayed for me was a real inspiration actually of leaving the corporate world behind to get involved in coaching. You know, a man who quoted his coach when he was young was a school teacher, table tennis coach. Any child who showed an interest in sport in that area, the guy would just sell table tennis to them in a real passionate way. And they would set up, I think it was in a Methodist church hall, table tennis tables. The parents would be given a key so that the kids could just go and play. The coach would tell them that this is the time that they were available. And, you know, the culture that resulted in that, the culture of, yes, national champion in men's and women's and under 18s champions, but also the hundreds and hundreds of players who found sport and found the enjoyment that could come from sport. And perhaps when they look back, just like you said earlier, they found the life lessons that you can get through sport. And that book for me was a real kind of, I am going to go into coaching. This is what I want to achieve. I want to get a hotbed of tennis, of people enjoying tennis in my local area. Just it's a great read, isn't it, for anyone interested in our
Absolutely.
area?
I mean, I tend to read a lot, you know, and I used to be very much kind of sport specific books. And yeah, you look at your kind of, as you said, you kind of Matthew Zayed, Malcolm Gladwell writes some great books around kind of outliers or the kind of tipping point of different things. A few books, and I'm looking that way because that's where my kind of bookshelf is. I mean, I've read the Michael Caine book, you know, and that's a great thing because Michael Caine, as an actor, professes the same things as we would as a athlete or a performer. You practice, you perform, and you critique. Well, that's we practice or we train, we perform or we play, and then we reflect and review. It's the same principle, you know. And he says that his stage is the playing field. You know, his dressing room is where you do the kind of critique and the reflection, but yeah, you rehearse as you would in training kind of thing. And it's things like that kind of parallels are absolutely huge kind of thing.
I love this related worlds, we call it, when I used to work more marketing side. What can you learn from related worlds? And I can't let you go without talking. I was doing some reading of some of your excellent blogs on I think it was UK coaching, wasn't it? And
yeah,
I love the fact that you say you can learn from other things, and you quote Kung Fu Panda. What a film! What a series of films! Now,
absolutely.
But how do you? What have you found that you can learn from those sorts of, incredible content?
I think Kung Fu Panda is the kind of ultimate one where you look at Po, who was a kind of enthusiastic novice almost, and then he was thrown into a situation by accident or circumstance or whatever kind of thing. And if when you go through the film, when you kind of strip out some of the kind of comedy, you know, I mean, Master Shifu then kind of finds the idea of what's his driving motivation. Well, it's food. Well, that's the kind of hook. But then the kind of driving motivation actually becomes the thing that kind of supports him. It's a great way of coaching techniques. You know, it's kind of command style, it's autocratic, but then it goes into democratic kind of styles, and it literally mirrors the coaching process. And at the end, the outcome is that the Po becomes the kind of hero and whatever kind of thing. So it's related to that, but it's almost using that as a tool to say to our players, saying, well, you've watched that film, this is what we're doing, so what's your motivation? I remember, I think when I was a governor at one of our local schools, what about that one of the boys really struggled with maths, and they're trying to find what made him tick, and he likes bird watching. So they actually focused the maths through an idea of kind of bird watching. All of a sudden, his kind of maths development improved dramatically. So it's finding that, and I think anything kind of Disney, Pixar, anything like that, you will find similar stories. I think, again, the Lego movie, same kind of thing, where you find that kind of idea of kind of creativity, developing things. We watched with the girls over the past few days Soul on Disney Plus. Great mentoring film. It literally does every kind of mentoring thing over. It's self-sacrifice, it's putting others first, it's developing talent and recognizing talent in others. That's essentially what we do as kind of coaches. And sometimes it's nice to see it in kind of films that what we talk about is actually their kind of thing. But ultimately, the idea of developing players, and obviously in my later stage now where I'm developing coaches, it's finding that those key hooks and key inspirations that say to people, this is what we're doing, we're making people better, and it's mirrored here kind of thing. I mean, normally any kind of Disney film will have a high into a low into a high. Yeah. That can be the coaching journey. It's really, 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 really good. No, I'm really, really, really struggling. I found the solution and it gets better. That is the coaching process. That is the coaching journey.
It's so true. I love it. I think I'll if I end up interviewing anyone from the LTA, I think I'll be saying, I think for the next coaches conference, the first part of the day should be Kung Fu Panda.
Absolutely.
The second part of the day, Kung Fu Panda 2.
Yeah.
And then in the evening, for those who are really keen, the third episode. That's what we'll go with. Come on. Go on, John.
I mean, the great thing about the kind of that series, I mean, you can see the same themes. I mean, it's the last one where obviously Po goes back to the Panda village, and then when they're being attacked, he kind of looks at everybody's ideal skills to make them kind of better, and it could be a dancing skill, but it turns into this, and it's the young pandas were kicking the kind of food or balls, whatever kind of thing, but it develops into a skill. That's what sport is. It's highlighting what you're good at and making it better.
I love those films, and maybe subconsciously I picked up on this stuff, but I will watch them again. I'll let Becky know that it's for my coach development skills, not just for enjoyment.
It's all about your CPD.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, I think that's a great example of innovation and in coaching and looking at different ways of improving yourself. What are the things, I know it's an area you're particularly passionate about is coaching and innovation. What sort of areas have you worked in? What sort of thoughts have you come out of that research with?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is finding that kind of hook to do something different. I mean, I'm a big believer, and as I said before, that I coach very differently to the way I was coached. I almost coach the way I want to be coached. That's not always right for everyone, kind of thing. But it's doing something different, but relating different life skills into sport. I won't take all the credit because I've done a lot of work with a guy called Richard Cheetham, who's the kind of coach and lead at the University of Winchester. Very much my kind of mentor and lead when it comes down to thinking differently. It's how you engage people. And there's another guy called Russ Earnshaw, former of the RFU. He now runs a company called the Magic Academy, creating coaching wizards. And we talk about a lot of those things over how can you use almost everyday things to engage a kind of coach. I mean, obviously, I've had the pleasure of watching you coach Holly, my own daughter, kind of thing, and your kind of innovative ways of bringing in different bits of equipment, engaging different games. That's essentially what it is. But ultimately, whatever we do from a creative perspective is underpinned by a coaching science or technical thing, but it's grabbing them into a hook. It's not just, I'm going to play tennis. It's, we had that really great game of trying to hit the cones off, or the game where, or the piece of equipment you've got. So it's just finding that kind of different hook. In ultimately, coaching and development is relatedness, as we've spoke about before. And it's, if you can find the hook for somebody to buy into what you're doing, they will become better. And ultimately, it might be we did the Kung Fu Panda game, but ultimately that may have been to improve their forehand, or it was to improve their kind of running with the ball, or whatever. So it's just doing that something different and engaging people. If you keep doing the same things again and again, you'll always have the same result. You have to do something different. I mean, a great example when you talk about Andy and Jamie Murray, playing with kind of balloons. Yeah. We've all played with balloons as kids, and it's a great kind of step back to using balloons again. And I use that as a coaching tool to develop communication, develop teamwork. So ultimately, can you keep a balloon up? Can you keep 2 balloons up? Can you keep 3 balloons up? But if you have 3 different colored balloons, you can be working with a partner who can give instructions out to you about which balloon you need to keep up in the air. And it's a real simple game, but we've all used balloons, we all talk, and we all have a laugh with it. But ultimately, it's underpinned by a scientific approach.
Love balloon tennis. And if you think about, the toughest shot in tennis is the serve. Yeah, you put a balloon above a child's head.
Yeah,
you can get, you can do so much with a balloon. I love balloon tennis. I think it's great to hear the examples. My favorite one I've got a couple of sisters, and I love coaching these sisters. They're great fun. And they have very, very different tastes in music. And so we set some targets out, and we were like, if you hit a target, if you hit your target, you DJ. And we had the speaker on, and one of them loved One Direction, and one of them really didn't. So every time they hit the One Direction, we'd switch to One Direction on the stereo. I have never seen the sisters so determined to take out those targets. So it does, it's fun, but it's also their accuracy on hitting. It's never been better.
And it is you're developing motivational techniques, or almost like a secondary goal, but the secondary goal actually contributes to the primary goal of getting a better technique.
Yeah.
But again, it's one of them things that if you can develop the kind of unconscious mind, then everything becomes easier. The more you think about stuff, the harder it becomes. I remember seeing I went into a talk with Jack Charlton a few years ago when he was manager of the Ireland team. Yeah. And he was kind of criticised for being very much direct, long ball, hit the front man kind of thing. But he had Tony Cascarino literally running the length or the width of the centre circle, winning a header and back. But it became habit, so you don't have to think about it, kind of thing. And that's the ultimate thing, that any great football shot or anything you've done, you don't think about it; it becomes instinct. So you're almost kind of creating that diversion of a secondary goal, but it results in the primary goal becoming significantly better.
Doing, not thinking. Come on.
Absolutely.
Now, I mean, we're local to Derby. The University of Derby's had a great impact, I think, on our city, in many ways. But what's your role now at the University of Derby?
I mean, obviously, primarily it's a lecturing kind of sport coaching. So I deliver a variety of sport coaching modules across the length and breadth of our kind of programs. That's the kind of my main role. The other part of what we do is we run something called the Human Performance Unit, which is aimed at almost kind of going out to support local and regional organisations and partners to kind of do something better, and how we can contribute to it. I mean, part of it is that we want our students out there. I mean, coaching, is we've already alluded to, isn't, you don't just sit in a classroom with me talking about coaching. It's out there, it's vocational, it's doing, so the role we look at, and it's something that will be expanding certainly over the next 6 months. It would have been sooner, but obviously we've been in the middle of a pandemic, which has kind of halted a lot of things. But the idea is that how we can support local clubs, organisations, partners with kind of academic science, academic technology to improve you guys in what you're kind of doing. So we're looking to run workshops and sending in students to support everything. We've been doing some great work with the Academy at Burton Albion around kind of physical data testing, where it's not fitness testing, it's physical data testing, and it's almost analysing the capability of people to move and move effectively. Essentially, if you can move better, then you'll run better and you'll hit the ball better and you'll swing the club better, or whatever you do, kind of thing. So that's one of the kind of big things we're doing. It's just a great thing that I'm being paid to talk sport and talk coaching and make things better. And I think the kind of role that we've got at the university, we are a very forward-facing, community-facing university. We want to do more. It is simple as that kind of thing. It's just kind of great. I mean, I said the challenge of the pandemic has been a struggle, but we're still doing stuff, and hopefully in the next 6 months to a year, when things do calm down, we can really start to come out and support people in the local area.
Brilliant. So a couple of, I mean, it's been brilliant chatting. Could do this all day, but I've got to go watch Kung Fu Panda in a minute. So a couple of questions, a bit more fun ones to finish, really. If you were put in charge of the world for a day, but you can only make changes to sport coaching, what is the one thing you would change in the world about sports coaching?
I would say to make it valued and recognised more, and I think as soon as you attach the word profession or professionalisation to the thing, it sometimes can kind of change it. It's just recognising the value and impact of what we do as coaches and coach educators. I think I probably do less coaching now, but more coach education or coach learning or coach development. But I am dipping my toe back into coaching. Obviously, as a football coach by trade, neither of my girls play football, so they're engaged in other sports kind of thing. So I'm almost re-engaging in other sports to become better. But it's almost, the one thing I would change is to value the role we as coaches play and have it recognised as a recognised business or whatever.
I've got to say, if I sat down next to you at the wedding and you went, "I'm a coach at Derby County," I'd be like, "Wow, I've struck big here. What an exciting time we're going to have. Let's get some beers in and go. Come on." And Becky would be like, "Oh, well, I've lost him for the night."
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting one. I mean, I remember one of the guys that spoke to me once about it in a wedding, and we sat down for him 2 hours talking about stuff. He goes, "Oh, I wish I was doing your job." I'm like, "Well, what do you do?" He goes, "Well, I'm an investment banker." I'm like, "Fair enough," but I'm thinking, "But you'd like to do my job. I'd quite like to be paid what you're being paid." Kind of thing on that. And it is that I will always say that we do the best job in the world, either if we get paid for it in a kind of monetary sense, or we get paid for it with a lot of love and kind of feedback.
Yeah. So totally agree with you. Totally agree with you.
To be valued and recognised is the ultimate thing for me. We need to recognise what we do more, and it's not just about the kind of Pep Guardiolas and the Eddie Jones of this world. It's everybody who contributes to the whole sporting process. I mean, it's a great thing that UK Coaching, as part of their coaching awards, do offer an award called the Coaching Chain, and it's recognising those people who've helped an elite athlete achieve kind of thing. And remember, one year I was there, and Philip Sadowa was there, who was the kind of triple jumper, and literally he had every coach with him that started, and things like that need to be more recognised and more read kind of thing. And it's just to show the value of what we do, and we're not just coaches, we are coaches, and we're contributing to the wider society, let alone the kind of wider sport thing.
Brilliant. Come on. And finally, so if you could go, and we ask this to everybody, if you could go for a drink with anybody, alive or dead, who would it be and why?
I think at the minute, go for a drink with anybody would be really good, because we can't do that. It's an interesting one. I mean, I was expecting this question, having listened to your other kind of podcasts, and you listen to kind of Keith say Abraham Lincoln about his thing, and I went off to read about it kind of thing. It's a real tough one. I think Stephen Fry would always be somebody that I'd be really intrigued to kind of meet, because I think he's very intelligent, very switched on, and just kind of has the whole kind of idea. I'm just about to read Matthew McConaughey's book that I've kind of got for Christmas. Again, listen to a podcast with him. But I think to have a drink with anybody who I can learn from and develop, and take a golden nugget, and that nugget might be a throwaway phrase, it might be 10 seconds. It's something. So I guess it's a bit of a cop out, but anybody who I can actually learn from and make me a better person, a better coach, is probably what I would want to do. But I think there's probably too many to actually say there's this one person I would love to. I think anybody who makes you better is the way forward.
Brilliant. I tell you what, it's got me thinking. It's just your answers got me thinking, and there's all sorts of people I think of with this one, but I would still. I know it's a Derby, it's a Nottingham thing, but Brian Clough, I'd love to sit down with him and hear a few of his stories and his motivation. because thinking outside the box and how he used to get his players playing, he was out there innovation wise, wasn't he? He was doing things differently and it worked.
Yeah, but nobody called it innovation. They called it being eccentric, you know,
Yeah.
and essentially that's kind of what it is. I mean, obviously, I mean, yeah, being a Derby fan, I mean, I was brought up on the legend of Clough at Derby kind of thing, and it is one of them. It's that interesting thing, and it's maybe another podcast. But was he a manager or was he a coach? Or and it's this kind of phraseology thing that football manager, football coach. I think it's interesting now within the world of football that different people have different titles. You know, you can be a head coach or you're the manager. But what does it mean? I've read a lot up on Jon Woodward when he was part of the RFU and the England team. No relation, sadly, because I'd love to spend time with him. But that process of that, he was the lead coach, the head coach, but he got a lot of people with him who could fulfill specific roles. I mean, obviously, as kind of grassroots coaches, we can't always do that. But it's finding that kind of right person at the right time to do something different, you know, and it's it's what people want to term. Is it innovation? Is it eccentricity? Yeah. Is it just being a good coach? Who knows? Yeah.
Brilliant. Hey, well, my friend, thank you so much for your time. I hope we'll get to have a drink sometime soon. Come on, the vaccine.
Yes, no, absolutely. We'll see what we can sort out.
Yeah, brilliant. But mate, thank you so much for your time. It's been brilliant to explore coaching with you. I hope we'll get a chance to speak again, and really appreciate it. So thank you very much, Jon.
No, pleasure. Always good to speak to you, Rob. Take care.